You're watching a Highwire Media podcast.
Welcome to the Cinema Gold Show. As always, I'm your host, Larry Lease. On today's episode, we are reviewing A Long Walk. Before we do that, let me know your thoughts on the film, A Long Walk. If you've seen it, what do you like it? Did you not like it? What do you think was the best part of it? And of course, let me know if you've read the book. And with that, let's dive into today's episode. It may not have been the first book the master of horror ever published, but The Long Walk was the first novel Stephen King ever wrote. Written during the height of the Vietnam War, it's a fascinating primal keystone text for understanding the lens through which King sees the world. And all that remains relevant about the text, translated faithfully by director Francis Lawrence, allows this long overdue adaptation to punch above the weight its bare bones premise may suggest. The rules for the 50 young men who've won a nationwide lottery to compete in the long walk are simple. Walk. Don't stop. Don't sleep. Walk. If a walker drops below 3 miles per hour, interferes with another walker, or otherwise breaks the rules, it's a warning. 3 warnings and you get your ticket. In most cases, that means a bullet to the brain, courtesy of the military escort riding along in Humvees, led by the Major, played by Mark Hamill, a roaring parody of machismo and rugged individualism, who's something of a godhead in this ailing world. The more the walk winds on, though, and as the elements and the limits of the human body come into play, the better that bullet starts to look for the set upon young men. Lawrence, who's cut his teeth on dystopian fiction with I Am Legend and most of the Hunger Game movies, kicks the walk off within moments of the movie starting, but takes his sweet time before letting the first contestant get eliminated. A moment he punctuates with a cinematic flourish that lands as a real surprise, so long after the movie has started. Every drop of rain, hill, drop ration, and bowel movement that follows become life or death modifiers of the march. The dozen of deaths that occur as the long walk goes are covered plainly and unflinchingly, and by the time the walk has wound down to its final contestants, the ones who got their tickets early on look like the real lottery winners. Lawrence rarely lets viewers off the hook, squeezing every drop of blood out of that R rating and forcing the viewer to be complicit in the violence. Even when we don't see the carnage, Lawrence puts the focus on the terrified faces of the survivors, highlighting the mounting psychological weight being loaded onto them as their bodies start to fail. Violence doesn't take long to become numbing, but that's the whole point here. The director smartly eliminates this by having Cooper Hoffman's Ray Garrity call out the real horror of the long walk early on, vocalizing his fear that both the walkers and the audience will grow to accept the bloodshed as routine. Simple, though, the conceit of the long walk proves a very elastic premise onto which many types of societal adversity can be projected. Garrity's reasons for joining the walk and why winning matters to him are a lot more complicated than most of his other competitors, which leaves him more open to forging relationships with the other walkers. In particular, Peter. Garrity and Peter spend much of the long walk musing on the larger existential questions begged by the very existence of the competition, and they both bring easy naturalism to their performances, which winds up being a real saving grace in the midst of all this darkness. The support and kindness they show each other become infectious, leading to moments of triumph as small as sharing food or letting one lean on the other. While The Long Walk was released in 1979, it was actually the first novel Stephen King ever wrote. He began crafting it when he was a freshman in college in 1966. The Long Walk is a not-so-shaded allegory for the Vietnam War, with the young men set off to die thanks to a lottery, so given that timeline at the height of the anti-war movement. You can see why this was top of mind for the young King. The Long Walk wasn't the first book he had published. That would be Carrie in 1974. But since then, it's been collected in the Bachman books, which contains 4 of the novels King published under the pen name. That's because he wrote the book and others like The Running Man under the pseudonym Richard Bachman. King explained why he wrote the novels under the pen name in a fact on his website. I did that because in the early days of my career, there was a feeling in the publishing business that 1 book a year was all the public would accept. Since King could write a whole lot more than 1 book a year, he convinced his publisher to release the Bachman books without fanfare so that he could see how they would sell compared to his regular books, and even created fake details like a bio and backstory for the writer as well as an author photo featuring Richard Manuel, a friend of King's literary agent. King also adds in the fact that eventually the public got wise to this because you can change your name, but you can't really disguise your style. While your mileage may vary on that, it's generally considered that King's Bachman books are, if you can believe it, even nastier than the books written under his real name. They contain harsher obscenities and are often much grimmer than his King-penned novels. It also makes the time when they're at odds feel as dangerous as the creepiest exhaustion they're both fighting, as that camaraderie feels more and more like the real secret to getting out of this thing alive. With Garrity's attention set to how his single wish could change the world if he wins, Peter becomes the real heart of the film, putting lovely emphasis on the power of living moment to moment, finding silver linings to every thundercloud, even the ones that dump rain on the boys as their shoes begin to fall apart and their feet start to bleed. Garrity and Peter's fellow walkers don't get nearly as much depth, and here Lawrence and Molnar feel a little stuck figuring out how much time to invest in developing characters with presumably such short life expectancies. Even more prevalent characters like Olson and Baker, who take to Garrity and Peter's optimism, are mostly just there to reinforce the co-protagonist's viewpoints. Berkovich is an antagonist in the truest sense of the word, a nervy, annoying nihilist who the Long Walk uses to needle all at the competitors, positioning him as a ticking time bomb, poking holes in Garrity and Peter's attempts to keep morale up. But he never quite goes off the way the movie seems to want you to think he will. Stebbins, a strong, quiet contender for the win, is a much more interesting character in that respect. His usual silence makes any infrequent observations about the futility of hope or his own thorny motivations to walk hit a lot harder. Mark Hamill's Major is drawn pretty thin. The fact that he's got the privilege of being driven around on the back of a Jeep while the boys die walking gives you everything you need to understand what the Long Walk's trying to say through him. The Long Walk runs relatively short at 108 minutes, but it feels every second of it. The rinse and repeat nature of the deaths, may hold a lot of emotional weight here, but rarely has the hair-splitting thought of shaving 10 or even 5 minutes off a cut felt like it may pay greater dividends, as the pace does start to drag in the Long Walk's second half. Gorgeous though the practical locations may be, Lawrence is only able to squeeze so much visual variety out of those long, verdant stretches of road, though he does break up the drone of the walk with occasional flashbacks to Ray's home life, which can explain why he was so adamant to join the walk in the first place. These flourishes aren't the only changes constant readers will notice, but the detours Lawrence takes from King's source material are all additive. They stay in the spirit of the book and feel respectful to the story, rather than an attempt to change everything just for the sake of it. Though the focus and perspective rightfully stays on the walkers, Judy Greer's Ginny Garrity has a few opportunities to show up in support of Ray, and hey, no shock for anyone who knows things one about Judy Greer, but she absolutely crushes in these very brief appearances. Greer's quick shifts through all the complex emotions a mother in this world may possibly experience, watching her boy take part in their death march, bookend the story, and are as haunting as any bullet or hemorrhage the movie has to offer. The Long Walk holds a harrowing and brutal mirror to its audience, pulling no punches as it grinds its way through dozens of young men who will risk it all for a better life. Cooper Hoffman and David Jonsson share the spotlight wonderfully, building a rapport which serves as the only light in what's unquestionably one of the most bleak Stephen King adaptations ever. The repetitive nature of the story leaves. The repetitive nature of the story leaves The Long Walk feeling longer and longer as it goes, but for all the open-ended questions it raises about a world which would condone and cheer on such violence, the answer it finds in the value of friendship and kindness feel all the more powerful. So now let me know your take on The Long Walk in the comment section below. And before we take off, we'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, and that is Paramount Plus. This episode is sponsored by Paramount Plus, your home for the shows and movies everyone's talking about. Whether you're into hit originals like Halo and Mayor of Kingstown, or you can't get enough of Yellowstone and the Star Trek universe, Paramount Plus has something for every mood. And it's not just shows. You also get live sports, breaking news with CBS, and a massive library of blockbusters. Think Top Gun Maverick, Mission Impossible, Indiana Jones, all in one place. You can stream on your phone, laptop, or big screen. No contracts, no hassle. So what are you waiting for? Use the link in the description today and start streaming the best in TV, movies, and live sports only on Paramount Plus. And with that, give us a thumbs up if you like our video, hit that subscribe button down below, hit the bell notification button to be notified of future videos, and if you want to support the channel, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/cinemagold. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.